What time is we bought? 1 o'clock.
My thought is to, this can be in there, even as recently put this side.
Call this meeting of the New Shoreham Town Council to order. Today is Thursday, June 20th. It is 6:50. Can I have a motion to go into closed session? Second, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. We are now in closed session. All set?
Who owns your great Bronco? Me. For a long time. It's my keys. Sometimes it's sitting on the keys. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Reconvening the town council meeting. We just had a closed session. I would like a motion to seal the minutes. Second? Oh, second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion, the meetings are sealed. We did take one vote, but that because there are multiple parties to this collective bargaining agreement, we have to keep that in the closed session and will not be repeating that vote. So on to the general meeting. Have I gotten everything, Millie? Okay. So before we start, a couple of things. One is, as you've seen, if you check Clerk Base, we're going to be scheduling a new draft for public hearing probably in July?
July 17th.
Probably July 17th. So the one that we continued is an obsolete draft. We made a lot of changes based on the thoughts that we heard from folks. But I know so many people came to speak. What I'd like to do, and it'll get you guys and me, because I have a plane in the morning to Australia, a little quicker, is if you want to speak during public comment. And then the hearing on the new draft, which is up on Clerk Base, will be on July 17th. Okay? Does that make sense to people? No? Okay. How can I answer any questions about it?
Families go away or whatever else. So I think she should do something.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Just identify yourself, your name, your address, all that.
Anya Zelinsky, and I'm just wondering why it's July 17th when a lot of families take vacations or can't be here. Why
Because
can't it be in the
I
fall?
mean, I don't mean to be flippant about it, but we do business all year round. That's when the next meeting's going to be, and that's when we're going to have the hearing.
That doesn't seem like, but my question is, why couldn't it be in September when people come back and kids are in school and families have more time?
Because if we pass the ordinance, we want to give as much time as possible for people to register and comply.
Well, that's even more reason to include the community to have the response and comment.
So I understand that's your position. We're going to schedule it for July 17th.
Okay.
The other thing is too, I wanted to speak later
Great.
too, but we're all,
Say your name.
my name's Ann Foster.
I am.
But most of us are renting our homes in July, so we don't have a place to stay to come to the meeting. So it becomes expensive.
Mhm.
So do you consider that at all? That if it's about the short-term rentals, most of us who have short-term rentals are not in our homes on the island
Sure.
in the summer. Unfortunately, we'd love to be,
Yeah.
but have you considered that too, along with what Anna said?
No, I mean, we've been at this for a year and a half probably now, and I think we're going to stick with July 17th.
Okay.
But thank
And-
you.
And I can speak again at the
Public comment? Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. In fact, you can stay up here. We'll start public comment now. Yeah, go ahead. Unless, Chris, you want to go? Come ahead. Oh, sorry, Pete, I didn't see you.
Chris Warfel, and I'm not going to talk about that issue. I have 3 issues to talk about. And I'll get these to you as correspondence also. I am requesting an agenda item within the next 2 months to discuss why the town of New Shoreham has failed to act on using jute fencing as dune erosion control. As part of the discussion, I am asking the town manager to provide whom she has spoken to about this concept, including approximate dates and communication from these conversations as relayed to others, including the town council. It's far past time for this issue to see the light of day. It's been presented to you over 10 years, and the town needs to explain its lack of action and who is responsible. That's one. I will.
Hey, Chris, can I ask you to do us a favor?
Yep.
I remember when I was first on the council 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, you actually sent a document that had what jute fencing is, because I don't remember exactly what it is. Could you resend, if you can find that on your computer? It had some photographs and stuff that was very helpful.
To just tell people what jute fencing is, it's a biodegradable fabric made from jute. It's in a mesh pattern. We used it to capture sand and build up quickly embankments on Corn Neck Road and Coast Guard Road. And it performed very well. And this was done all through BIRA and by a couple of people, including myself, as volunteers to demonstrate this. There's some things going on, I understand, I will say behind the scenes, that why this is not done, but this is, in my opinion, is kind of crazy that it's not being brought out as to what's going on, why it has not been done. And this leads to my second comment, open meeting request under the Rhode Island Access to Public Records. I'm requesting information about the Corn Neck Embankment project. What was the genesis of this project? Who within the town was involved in the project? Who designed the sand embankment and the considerations, if given, of its negative impact on the inner ponds and how this is to be addressed? Who authorized the planting of beach grass? Who authorized the lack of use of jute material? There's nothing that's holding the sand down. And we see that because it's being plowed on a fairly regular basis. And I would like to know what the state and town plans are for maintaining bank stability and at whose cost that will be. The intent of this request is for me to gain an understanding of how this project came into being in its current form. And there's all this others.
Can I just ask you a quick question about that?
Yes.
When you talk about sand embankment project, are you talking about the one done by a private homeowner?
No, I'm
on
talking
Corn Neck
about
Road, or are you talking about the one across from the beachhead on Corn Neck Road?
across from the beachhead.
Okay, thanks.
Having had an oyster farm in Harbor Pond as one of my sites, I can tell you what's happening right now as we just loaded up Harbor Pond with more sand. And there has been no action by this town to rehabilitate our inner coastal ponds. And that's why we don't have scallops, flounder anymore, very much debilitated. The survivability of the other ponds is in deep question. The town has no plan for this, even though they were given several. And this latest thing that we did on Corn Neck Road with the state absolutely probably had no consideration for the negative consequences of that design, nor did the town. So I would like to know the history of that. The third item has to do with the building department. I am requesting that town manager provide the basis for the contention that the current contracted town and shore inspector has all the required licenses that were required and discussed at the town and shore financial meeting 2023. At that time, the town manager took about approximately 1.5 minutes to search and declare to us that all licenses required were obtained by the contractor. The town manager was also tasked at that meeting to improve the availability of inspections and to lower the cost of the contracted position. Town manager needs to describe the steps taken to do so. I am also requesting, as part of this discussion, that the town manager provide the resources she used during the financial 2023 meeting that led her to stating that all licenses were obtained. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Appreciate it.
Who's next? Pete, did you?
Meeting will be on film.
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Who'd like to go? Go ahead, Ann.
Ann Foster. I did send a letter
Yes, thank
back
you.
in
Yes.
the fall
Thank
of
you. Yes.
2023. But I'm standing up tonight to ask the town council why to the short-term rental ordinance. I'd also like to ask the town council if each of you is a homeowner with a short-term rental. Just curious. I mean, you don't have to answer these questions now, but if not, I would suggest that you speak with the homeowners along with those who rent our homes to understand better what short-term rentals do for this community of Block Island as a whole. I feel the responsibility is on the town council to answer why the current system of short-term rentals on the island jeopardizes the public health, safety, and welfare of Block Island. I don't think that has been answered. Once the town council can answer this question to the public, taxpayers, homeowners, renters, small business owners on the island, we can begin to solve the real issue, but not until we know why. If the town council is truly concerned with the public health, safety, and welfare of Block Island, why are we not doing something about those who are causing a threat to the island? I want to know why you think our short-term rentals are threatening our island. You have not provided proof of that. A real example of jeopardizing the public health, safety, and welfare of Block Island, July 4th, 2023, never made the news, yet I walked the beach in disbelief as a mob of most likely underage visitors made the beach off limits to others, along with an ocean filled with their litter. The ferry ride home that night was sheer horror as fights broke out with young families and elderly on board. I had to summon the police to escort an elderly couple to their car because the stairwell was blocked with a fight in progress. This is a real threat. The burden of proof is on the town council to justify that homeowners such as myself and short-term renters are jeopardizing the public health, safety, and welfare of Block Island. I can assure you that I respect my property, my tenants, and the island of Block Island. If you can prove otherwise, I'm open to explanation. And from there, we can troubleshoot a real solution. I don't know what your intention is due to a lack of transparency, but I can tell you that along with many other homeowners and renters, we are not the threat to Block Island. I urge you to find a better way to go after those who you perceive as a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare of Block Island.
Terrific. Thank you, Ann.
Let's say something.
Let's not.
I want to say something.
Okay.
I just want to remind everyone, this is not a public hearing. We're going to have a public hearing. I think the first warden was extraordinarily gracious in letting people speak tonight. But before the public hearing opens, this is just public comment, and public comment is not supposed to be dialogue. It's supposed to be comment. And that's just a procedural issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Sorry about that.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Larry Wall. I have an interest in a property at the Masons Hall condominium, unit 3A. I'm not looking for a dialogue at this point, but I'm going to raise some questions and perhaps you can answer them during the dialogue part. So section 8-326B is the occupancy limit section. And I don't know whether that is going to be remain in the new draft, and I hope it is not in its present state, because it seems to me that it sets up a dichotomy that makes no sense. You have if you're a short-term renter or a short-term, if it's a short-term rental, it can be two people with one bedroom. If it's a residence who lives there, there's no limit to how many people can live in the unit. This is a sewer building, not a building on septic. And if it's long-term rental, again, it's not burdened by this two person limitation per bedroom. I think as I read the ordinance, I think that's from my standpoint, that's the biggest problem I see, because that's an economic problem where you're putting an economic burden on people, and you're limiting people to rent to two people when they may have a property that has a pull-out couch in the living room. It may have a sleeping loft. It may have maybe a historic building that doesn't comply with the window size, or it doesn't fit the definition of a bedroom. So, or maybe people will get cute and design bedrooms that have kitchens in them. So my thought is, I think section 326B needs to be reworked or eliminated, because I think it imposes a financial burden on people, which is not what you had in mind. You have in mind, it seems to me, controlling unruly visitors, dealing with parking. I don't even know if there are any other things you're really going to deal with this ordinance, if any of those things. But what you are going to do by imposing this ordinance is hurting people in their pocketbook, and I think that's improper.
Terrific.
Thank
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the time. How are you? Thanks for coming.
Jeffrey Bloom,
Yeah, Jeff.
1254 Connecticut.
Mhm.
And first, I just wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity, for giving us all
Absolutely.
the opportunity. You may hear a lot of anger, but
That's okay.
I think all of us really respect the work that you guys do.
Thank you. Thank you.
I couldn't do it.
Thank
You're
you.
always here. I just wanted to, two quick little stories. I have three children, a boy and two girls. And when they were small and we would travel as a family, we would get a hotel room. It would have two double beds, and we'd stop at the front desk and get a rollaway cot.
Mhm.
And we'd all be in that room. And it was not comfortable. But we did it because we were traveling. We were visiting my mother in Florida. We were visiting family in Pennsylvania. We were going places that we wanted to go. And that's part of travel. All families kind of do that. It's a compromise that we make when we travel. Thinking about this ordinance, I know it doesn't apply to hotel rooms, but if those hotels said you could only have two people per room and we had to get 3 hotel rooms for our family, our young family, we just wouldn't have gone. We couldn't have afforded it.
Mhm.
So we would either travel less or we would go someplace else that didn't have those rules. That's my second story is about cousins. We have an aunt and uncle who came here almost 30 years ago on a vacation. They rented a 3-bedroom house. They have 2 kids. Their kids were married. So they stayed in 1 bedroom, and one of the kids and spouse stayed in 1 bedroom, and the other kid and spouse stayed in the other. And they actually still come here. It's been over 30 years that they've been coming here the same week, the same house. They eat at the same restaurants. They love Block Island. In the meantime, those kids have had kids of their own. Each of those kids has had 2 girls, and they're all packed into this little house.
Mhm.
So the 1 bedroom has 1 family, 1 bedroom has 1 family, and the parents have the 3rd bedroom. And they love Block Island. And as a matter of fact, they're the ones who introduced us to Block Island many years ago. We started renting that same week and coming, and now we own a home here. 10 people in a 3-bedroom house, not comfortable. But they couldn't afford. That's what they could afford. And they love it. And they're willing to do it because that's what people do when they're on vacation and when they're traveling. And if this ordinance had been in place, then they would have needed a 5-bedroom house. They can't afford a 5-bedroom house. They wouldn't have come. they wouldn't have kept coming once they had their kids. And they would have found someplace else. And that's a shame. And I think that one of the side effects of this ordinance is that you're going to price out young families, you know, that just won't be able to afford to come. So the people that come will be more affluent people. And I think that is part of a cycle that is causing other problems that we're trying to fight with. So, and I think this ordinance would end up exacerbating that problem. I think a young family isn't the problem. And it's a shame that they would be caught up in this.
Thank you very much. It's great. Hi.
I'm Julie Shepro. Thank you for allowing us to speak this afternoon or this evening. So my family has had homes on Block Island for the last 25 years. Over the last 10 years, we have rented our home and have been very successful in getting new visitors to fall in love with Block Island and having returning visitors continue to love the island. We've given them a comfortable place to stay, a safe place to stay. As a responsible homeowner who relies on short-term rentals for supplemental income, we believe the proposed ordinance, which targets short-term rentals while excluding hotels and inns, is both unfair and based on unsubstantiated claims. I'd like to address the provisions of the ordinance that we are most against and provide arguments against their implementation. I wouldn't call it arguments. I think this is an open forum, right, to have discussion. I know it's not a two-way discussion right now. So, but I think the point is really being against the things that are being proposed. So the first one is the annual registration fee. So the requirement to register homes annually for a fee, I feel like is an unnecessary burden for homeowners. There's no evidence that such a fee will directly address the issues cited, which are noise, congestion, pollution, etc. Instead, it appears to be a revenue generating measure for the town, penalizing homeowners without guaranteeing an improvement in community welfare. Second is including a home registration number in advertisements. Mandating the inclusion of a registration number in these advertisements is overly intrusive and adds a layer of bureaucracy that complicates the rental process. Policing such advertisements could lead to unintended consequences, such as penalizing homeowners for minor oversights, and there's no clear evidence that this measure will effectively reduce the cited problems. Then there's the bedroom occupancy limit. Restricting occupancy to 2 people per bedroom, regardless of the number of beds, is arbitrary and does not account for the varying sizes and designs of homes. Larger bedrooms can comfortably and safely accommodate more than 2 people. We are responsible homeowners who know the capacity of our septic systems, and we would not want to risk an issue of overburdening the system with too many people. This provision unnecessarily limits the potential rental income for homeowners and does not correlate with reducing noise or congestion or some of the other issues that have been brought up as a reason to put this ordinance in place. And there's the home inspections. Allowing the town to inspect homes whenever they want, which right now, that's kind of what it says right now in the ordinance. It's a violation of privacy and property rights. Homeowners should be able to expect reasonable notice and justification for an inspection. Again, as responsible property owners, we have made sure we have working smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, and this responsibility should be left to us and not to an inspector from the town. As I mentioned, we've been renting for 10 years. We've never had an issue. And then there's on-island availability requirement of someone to manage the property. Requiring homeowners to be available on the island or hire a property manager is impractical and financially burdensome. Many homeowners do not reside on Block Island year-round and cannot afford to hire a property manager. Moreover, the majority of short-term rentals already have systems in place to address issues promptly, such as locals' contacts or a direct connection to the homeowner when something goes wrong. After 10 years of renting, we have had only 2 incidents with renters, and they were related to noise, dogs barking, and they were addressed immediately and successfully without any of us being on the island to directly address them. And then lastly, release of personal information for renters. Releasing personal information of renters is a significant privacy concern and could deter potential guests from choosing Block Island as a destination. This requirement also places an undue administrative burden on homeowners to collect and manage this information securely. There is no evidence that this measure would effectively address the issues cited as rationale for this ordinance. And then the exclusion of hotels and inns. It's discriminatory to target only short-term rental homes while excluding hotels and inns from similar regulations. Hotels and inns also contribute to noise, congestion, and other issues cited by the town. And actually even more so because of the volume of people they have coming in and out of their properties. By focusing solely on short-term rental homes, the ordinance unfairly burdens individual homeowners and creates an uneven playing field. Any effective ordinance should apply equally to all types of short-term accommodations to be fair and justifiable. In conclusion, the proposed ordinance is based on unsubstantiated claims and imposes unnecessary and burdensome regulations on short-term rental homeowners. These measures as currently proposed, right? So we have an opportunity to make some changes and work together to do so. But right now, they seem to be intrusive, discriminatory, and lack clear evidence of their effectiveness. I feel a more balanced approach supported by data and inclusive of all types of short-term accommodations will be more equitable and beneficial to the community as a whole. Instead of punitive measures, the town should consider working collaboratively with homeowners to address specific issues through education, reasonable regulations, and community engagement. This approach would foster a positive relationship between homeowners, renters, and the wider community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One second. Anybody else, Ben?
Benjamin Martin. Hi, thank you.
Hey, Ben.
I first and foremost want to apologize for my emotional outburst the last time we went around about a year ago. It's a tough time. No excuses. But anyway, I was going to write something out so I didn't blur or swear or yell and stuff like that, but I didn't. I just didn't.
It's all fair. It's all fair.
Yeah, but I don't want to do that to you guys. It's a thankless job. You're all working very, very hard on our behalf. But I did want to say, get off my lawn. You know, it took me my whole life to buy this thing, and my family goes back all the way to the original set. And I finally bought a house from working so hard, and I can't afford it. I have to rent it out. I'm going to have to rent it out for 30 years. And then hopefully my children don't sell it. I mean, so like, that's where I'm at.
Great.
Like, get off my lawn.
Mhm.
Do not send people to my property.
Thanks, Ben.
That's all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mary, were you? Mary, you're next. Sorry. No, that's okay. Go on. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So my name is Anya Zielinski. I wrote stuff down, but to be honest with you, it doesn't matter what you write down. I can't talk for anybody here. I could talk for my family. And I got to know many of you through this process that I could call friends, right? What I think upsets me the most is that so many of us have voiced our opinion and we feel that we're not being heard. And maybe I'm wrong. But I feel that I'm not heard. I feel that this is just an exercise. I feel that we're here for Mike night. We write our letters, but no matter what we say or what we do is not heard. And it's frustrating. And I know you're all good people. You're just doing your job that you're elected to, that you think you're the best. But I think what hurts the most, and it is hurt and disappointment, could be wrong again, is that so many of us have reached out individually to each and every one of you to sit down, have a cup of coffee, have a beer, have a mudslide. Okay? And let's talk out. Tell us why you feel the way you feel. And here, let us tell you why we feel that way. And it has fallen on deaf ears. Again, I could be wrong, but I feel that way. And there may be some good reasons, and I would love and invite you to 27 High Street Unit 3B. I'll make you dinner. I'll meet you anywhere you would like, and I'll support any small business because I would love to hear what your take is, because you're not wrong. We're not wrong. It's not us versus you. It just, this whole country is us versus them. November, it's us versus them. What it could be is transparent, and all of these people here, Mrs. Dodge, Steve, Keith, Mary, are all your neighbors and friends who you've had breakfast with, shoveled driveways with, helped with, but you won't meet and talk about where on the same page you'll be, because I really do believe that there could be common ground. Now, everybody here has a point of contention, what they don't like about the ordinance. My point of contention is this: I'm a public servant. I have been a public servant for 20 years. My husband has been a first responder for 20 years. My family has been public servants and in the military. And we are not Nantucket people. We are not Martha's Vineyard people. We are blue collar, grab a natty light people. And our piece of heaven, as small as a postage stamp, is on Block Island. And what we love about Block Island is that it's not Nantucket, it's not Narragansett, it's not Martha's Vineyard, it's Block Island. And when we bought our piece of heaven, as small as it is, the reason we picked what we did was because it was historic, because it made a mark. It's because of what we could afford. And yes, I am not ashamed or humbled to say that we can't afford it unless we rent it out. Now, if that makes me look anything but humble, I'm guilty of it. But what I can't stand is that people of like minds, all good people in this place, there's no one bad person in here, can't sit across the table from each other and talk this out. So what happens when that occurs? It forces people to go to their corners. It forces people not to talk. It forces people like myself to use my background and my husband's background to file APRA requests, to burden the town council, burden the police department to come up with what data you have that was the responsibility of the town council to provide to all these people here, okay? And what that amounted to was 20 noise complaints every year that could not be attributed to short-term rentals. And it also came out to that in 5 years, not one council member has reached out to the police department to see what complaints there were. Now, I don't fault anybody for that, but all of this could have been solved if across the table at Persephone's, Ellen's Diner, I'm going to plug as many small businesses as I can, okay? To have a cup of coffee and talk this out. I do not understand why a room full of educated, perhaps a difference of opinion people, kind people can't talk this out and not willing to meet. And then respectfully to the town council to set the next meeting July 17th, when most of us are not here. That is not a coincidence. Now, maybe it is, but when you don't feel like you're heard and it's not transparent, every single one of you, these people feel, well, what's behind that? Am I wrong? So my ask of you is meet us, talk to us, meet with the police chief, meet with the fire chief, meet with the realtors, meet with the longtime residents, meet with people that are for the ordinance, meet people who are against the ordinance, meet with people as a roundtable and work together to figure it out. But do not copy and paste it, and don't hide behind, well, Narragansett did it, Nantucket did it, Martha's Vineyard did it. Hell, we're just like them. No, we're not. That's what makes Block Island special. We're not them. We're not hedge fund people. There is no hedge fund person here. And if they are, I'll buy you a mudslide, okay? There's no one here. You want to keep it Block Island? Then listen to us. Work with us. Pay attention to us when we're talking at the microphone. That's all we ask.
Hi, everybody. Steve Miller, West Side Road. You know, not a day goes by in my life when I'm not like very, very grateful to live on Block Island. And part of it, what made it really special was like being on the fire department, on the rescue squad, on the HTC, being involved with the Harbor Baptist Church, and one other more anonymous thing that I spent a lot of time on. And so I'm not glad handing when I say that I really appreciate the time that you guys put in. I understand it. And so we just had some renters. We rent our master bedroom out, and they went to bed at 9 o'clock and they got up at 5 a.m. and they're absolutely no trouble. We hardly know they're there. The guy across the street, who I love and whose house I have redone completely, the homeowner, has a 4th of July parade and they shoot fireworks off and they drink beer and like, oh, and I have to get up at 4 a.m. So I just wanted to illustrate that little contrast. And most of the renters that I know, in my experience in our minister's lot house and in my own house, are very respectful and quiet. We've never had an issue in 20 some odd years. So there are a lot of reasons I could go into why this particular STR ordinance is not a good idea. But the overweening one is that if you were to put it to a vote, you would lose 98% to 2%. And in my book, that's a compelling reason to slow down. And the notion that the new STR ordinance will be presented and presumably voted on in the same night is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. And the idea that the stakeholders are not going to be involved in the formulation is also just unacceptable. That's all I got.
Thank you, Steve. Mary? We'll get there eventually.
Hello, I'm Mary Stover. I'm not related to Keith Stover. Start with that. I think pretty much everyone has covered what we were talking about. Our biggest question is private property rights. Some of the things and indications in the ordinance are actually against the Realtors Code of Ethics. We've talked about this before. We cannot divulge any personal information on anyone we do business with, client or customer, unless presented by legal authority. That would be a search warrant, the police department, something like that. On the other basis, any kind of problems that are with renters or anyone else that has a question, everyone knows who to call. On this island, I have to look at all of you. Do you know one house where one person lives that you can't figure out how to get in touch with any person on this island? If you don't know the person, you know the person that knows the person that knows the person that knows the person. Why else do I get phone calls at 11:30 at night on a Thursday in November saying, I think a shower door blew off on such and such address on such and such a house. Do you know who the homeowner is? Could you give them a call? Everything from that to somebody's roof blew off a house a few years ago on the Coast Guard Road. Yes, I know who that is. I know who bought it. I know who they are. Here's the cell phone number. That took about 8 seconds to get that information. So I don't have any problem with having a registration of people who rent their homes. My problem is signaling out one enterprise and punishing them for all of the evils that you think are presented on Block Island. Short-term rentals are not the devil that brings all of these situations together. Your noise, if anybody who drove through the parking lot last night at the Block Island Ferry around 5 o'clock, Anybody here do that? My children and my son-in-law and my daughter came to visit just for the day from Massachusetts. They stood in a line for what, an hour and a half just to get on the ferry? Because the ferry came over here in capacity in 4, 5, 6 boats. And then everyone exited the island on the same 2 boats because they never bothered to change the schedule to reflect the fact that it was a holiday. These are the problems that need tackled. We don't have a port authority. We cannot control who comes and goes. These seem to be the biggest problems that are plaguing our island. And I do not believe short-term rentals are causing that problem. Sure didn't cause that problem yesterday. Those were all day trippers, every single one of them. That's all I have to say. I think we need a committee to find out the problems and solve them. Thank you.
Welcome.
Kevin Johns, I was gonna get up here and talk about why I oppose this. One thing that was very clear at the beginning of the meeting, Keith, was when somebody said something about the July 17th meeting. You said, we'd like to get through this and get everybody registered so they can be prepared. That was really clear.
Yeah.
If it passes.
If it passes.
Right, if it passes.
If it
We want to get
passes.
everybody up and running as soon as possible. So you've got a room of stakeholders.
No, that's
here.
not what I said. I want to give people time to comply. That's.
That's my point.
Okay.
You just made my point. You just made my,
I'm not sure what it is, but great.
so I think,
Foregone conclusion, inevitable.
No, I said if it passes.
so you have a room full of stakeholders there. I don't think there's one proponent of this in the room. As Steve said, I think if you put this to vote, it doesn't happen. You're representing the people in this room, correct? Yes?
And a lot more, yeah.
Okay, so listen to the people. I mean, there are stakeholders here. If people that want to participate in this meeting and can speak to you and have a say in this, and you're hearing all these people can't be here. The houses are rented. They can't be here to participate in this. You're going to Australia. If you were going to be in Australia, July 17th, I bet you there wouldn't be a vote.
Probably not.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Hagop Jaharjian, along with my wife Christine Donabedi, and we're the owners of Old Town Road 1553. I'm not going to regurgitate what's already been presented throughout the night. I just want to bring certain points that I think more specifically will enlighten the town council with regards to the intent for the registration, having a local representative. If an property is owned by a limited liability company, it's already registered with the Secretary of State's office with designated identifiable contact people for purposes of notice, for purposes of service, as the intended ordinance language recites. If it's individually owned, there is a Rhode Island statute on point for non-resident landlords, which short-term rentals would fall into, that require you to register and identify who the contact persons are. And there's a framework already. So I think that singularly, the requirement under this proposed ordinance is overreaching. It does not have a rational basis if the purpose is to be able to contact the owners of the properties. To segue, we've owned the property for 8 years. During the course of that time, we've rented short-term. We've had one instance where our abutting neighbor immediately contacted us, said that there was a noise issue. Contacted the renters, it was resolved. There was no requirement for law enforcement to get involved. There were no issues about parking or anything like that. I can go on and pick apart. I don't need to because it's already been presented to you and perhaps on July 17th or another date, if the town council so chooses to address the proposed ordinances, we can get into the meat and potatoes of the additional points. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Greg Marks. Are you guys familiar with me from the last meeting?
Hey, Greg.
How you doing? I'm going to be very brief. Most of the people here, I say, are here because they found out through me. All right, a lot of people here through me. A lot of people didn't know what was going on. And I know that it was in meetings, it was in agendas. Some things weren't spelled out correctly. So a lot of people didn't know about it. Every week, I actually meet 4 to 5 people. I met someone on the beach today, Mansion Beach today, who said, there's a short-term rental ordinance coming in? I'm like, yeah, had no clue. So my problem is what was brought up, my wife brought up earlier, was that I wrote to you guys. I sent you guys out information. I asked for a meeting, just coffee, just to sit down, let's just talk. We are not against something being put forth, but we need to speak to say, hey, this is what needs to be said. This is what we're saying, and meet us halfway. Mary Stover and I and a couple others actually worked on a version of an ordinance. It was submitted to Clockbase. You guys have it. It's similar to what you guys have, but it meets all the points that we're talking about. Why not look at it? Talk to us. Sit down with us. Just have a conversation before July 17th so we can all talk and see what needs to be changed and what can be worked. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Oh, man. Oh, don't be silly.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Lauren Banerjee. I owned a home here for 29 years, I think. And we've just started renting it. And first of all, I think it's so discriminatory to say short-term people are bad and 30-day people are okay. That's so weird. I don't get it at all. I don't know where this whole thing is coming from. It really is the crazies getting off the ferry that are causing problems. Anyway, now that we rent, we employ all these people that we like, okay, we have a realtor, we have a lawnmower, we have garbage pickup, we have window washers, we have cleaning people. We used to do it all ourselves. So I think it's kind of a good thing for the island. And will these rules and occupancy rates apply to the rooming houses? Because from what I've heard, some of the employees that get put in rooms that's really egregiously overstuffing people. And that's it.
Terrific. Thank you. Anybody else? Did you want to go?
Sandy, excuse me, Sandy Grinley.
Hey, Sandy.
My story is just autobiographical because I feel like my Black Island story is only enabled through short-term rentals. And I first came here when I was 3. My parents and my uncle and aunt would rent a place. My parents had 2 kids. They had 3 kids. We weren't renting places that had 5 bedrooms. There's not many places here that do. We did that for a long time. When I was 12, my parents were fortunate enough to be able to buy a place here. They were only able to buy a place because they were able to rent it out. And that's what enabled them to be on the island, enabled our family to continue to fall in love with the island. And they are now full-time residents. I'm also fortunate enough to have a place as well. We bought it in 2021. There's no way I could have afforded the place without knowing that I would have rental income to supplement. And similarly, it's the kind of place where there's a common room with some bunk beds, and it doesn't comply with the occupancy limits that would be set forth by this bill. We also, when we bought our place, had a legacy septic system across the street on a neighboring plot, had to put in a, new advanced low nitrogen septic system. It is equipped with things like remote monitoring, various measures to ensure that it is not a danger to the environment or to the island in any way. And it works because so many of our showers are outdoors that there's not a high volume of water that goes through it. For much of the year, it's not occupied. And, I have 3 daughters now, all of whom are on island with me tonight. And the reason I'm here is because I feel like this jeopardizes our experience our ability to continue to live that experience, which is loving the island, having families come over, supplement our ability to be able to afford it and, in some ways fall in love with the island themselves. And the reason I'm here talking to you guys as opposed to being back with, taking care of them is I want this to be able to continue. And I see this as, threatening our ability to be able to, continue to be part of this community. So very important to me. And thank you guys all.
Thank you,
service.
Sandy.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Terrific. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Moving on to the consent calendar, I believe.
The May 13th minutes have not been distributed at this point, so if you could just.
Okay. Okay, so we have both open and closed, neither open nor closed. So we have the June 3rd and June 6th, but not the May 13th. As well as correspondence. So just to reiterate, this does not include the May 13th, 2024 open and closed minutes. Is there a motion? Second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Continuing, this is the continued hearing I was referring to earlier in the meeting. Do I have to open it again? Or can I just?
It's still kind of open.
I know when I spoke with Nick, he suggested that we close it. But I wasn't sure whether we needed to open it tonight and then close it. Okay. Can I have a motion to close this public hearing? Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Now we need to act to set a public hearing date for the new draft of the short-term rental ordinance, which I would encourage people to read. It is on ClickBase. What date? July 17th, right? July 17th. Okay. Yeah.
That is on ClerkBase.
The new draft is on ClerkBase.
Okay.
Yes. So can I have a motion to set this for a public hearing on July 17th? Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We also need to set a public hearing. Planning referred back to us. They did the work that we asked them to do on this bike tour ordinance. That too will be on the 17th. Can I have a motion to set that for second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no.
So that's the 17th also?
Yes, both of those are on the 17th. Now on to item 7. This is just something that has occurred to me and I would imagine others. One of the things that has, I think Martha and I have talked about this, has become clear is we do not have a tent ordinance on Block Island. This is not, by the way, solely related to the harbor side. There's at least one other retail establishment that has tents permanently on their site. And I think we should ask planning to look into this and make any ordinance recommendations they might. And for me, I don't limit it to the tents. I think there's another aspect of this that Martha has raised more than once, and I don't know whether it's all of this is together, but our maps don't match the historic district and the zoning district. So maybe they could take a look at that as well, but if you guys are okay with it, I think we should ask planning to look at that and work with them on that. Does that make sense to folks? Okay.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say, we're talking about tents only in the Old Harbor, New Harbor. I don't think that's what we want. Because we have Old Harbor, New Harbor, mixed use, service commercial, we have the whole corridor.
That's a good point.
Whatever.
Yes, yes.
And we have tents that are in residential areas that, because that zoning has, and it's not just HDC zoning lines, it is, I mean, I think everybody's seen the new building that's going up at the end of, where Ocean Avenue meets, Beach Avenue. And we're just fortunate that the person who bought that and took down the old beautiful house has a very good architect. Because that's not in the historic district. It
Right.
should have been.
Yes.
It never was.
Yeah. If I were to wave a magic wand on this, because I think there are perfectly legitimate reasons to want to use a tent. You know, I think you should just have to come and get a permit to do it, you know. But if you're using a tent, this is just my opinion. If you're using a tent for the entire season to expand the square footage of your retail establishment, that's a little bit different. That's a bit of a different use. You know, if you're whatever doing a sale on a Saturday or Sunday, God bless you. I don't have but you know, I think it's got to be a bit nuanced.
There's all kinds of complications in this because some, without getting into specifics, there are places that have awnings attached that have no connection to the business inside. And it's a separate business, or has been in the past. There's an awful lot of stuff that has always fallen into that. It's a 2-month season, and by the time you
Yes.
get through.
Yes.
I mean, I'm really tired of hearing people, doesn't happen here, but on the mainland, they're always complaining about how, well, everybody gets bought off, and I don't think people get bought off, and you have, everybody's got lawyers. Lawyers, just extend things out.
Yes.
But this is definitely a topic of conversation. This is something that I get stopped about a lot.
Well, I think the
People
point
want to know like
is not,
what exists and what we're doing and
Right.
it's not, and it's already bled from tents to tents with signage. So the signage hasn't been approved either.
Right.
So it's sort of like a mushrooming issue.
I just think we've got to be really clear. We're not just doing this. I think we look, I don't really care how we look. I think that everybody being so upset because tents went up at the harbor site. Yeah, Mike Finnemore, the owner should have come in and made some effort, but the hotel burned down. We have places that have had tents for years. We've had things that, and I do think it's time that the entire thing be looked at holistically, not with this, oh, we're going to take care of this one thing.
I totally agree with that.
Most people don't even notice that, you know, people who live here don't have anything to do, just complain about. People who come in on the boat still see the national shining, thank God.
I agree with you. And when I'm happy to reach out to planning too, just to give them a sense of what that context is. I think all of us, and when planning brings it up, we should go to their meetings. Their meetings are always interesting.
They won today.
Yes, they did. Yes, I would like to, I'll take a stab. Direct the planning board to consider an ordinance regarding tents, storage containers, and other
ancillary uses in various zones on the island. How was that? Did that cover the?
Yeah, all zones.
Yeah.
Sure. So I'll second that.
Hi,
but
Arlene.
Can I ask a question too?
Oh, please.
Storage containers already addressed?
They are, but apparently not.
Okay. So maybe when somebody knows there's one after 3 years. So that's what
Yeah.
everyone knows.
Yeah. Arlene?
Arlene Tunney, I'm Chair of the Historic District
Yes.
Commission. And I can't begin to tell you how many calls and comments I've gotten complaining about the circus that has come to town. And I don't know what to do about, what we can do about it. There's another application in that shows that property in a site plan. And actually the Harborside property is covered with tents. The only part that is the moped property is the rear.
Yes. I can never remember which one is 106 and which one is 105.
Right, so-
But one or the other.
Both properties, and it's come to my attention that the owner has offered people tents that they can rent.
I heard that just this week as well.
To
I mean,
sell their-
so you
their
know,
goods.
and for those who haven't heard about it, there are 2 outstanding notices of violation there.
Okay. And then, of course, we have the tents on the corner of Corn Neck Road and what is it, Dodge Street? And it's getting bigger and more congested. And another tent at the Blue Pottery. It's beginning to look awful.
Yeah. Come to planning when they do this,
Okay.
please. All those in favor indicate, oh, sorry, Bill.
I guess the question I have is an ordinance on the containers, what is there and who's in charge of enforcing it? And before we go writing another ordinance, would it make sense to see what that ordinance is and why we are enforcing it?
I don't know whether you heard this, but on the primary stuff regarding the tents, we don't have an ordinance.
It's just that's
Review those uses, I think, because look, I'm not crazy opposed to storage containers. I just don't want them lined up on Water Street personally. That's kind of my thing. That's where I am. Because I can imagine a situation where you might need a storage container that was shielded from the road. And, I mean, I'm not unreasonable about that. I think we should look at all of it because you're right. I mean, I think what happens to us is if you don't see it, you have to wait until someone does, and then someone sees it and then ruminates about it and tells you, and then it's August 1st and the season's over. It's like so much of the stuff we deal with. So anyway,
I'm not saying that. I'm not for or against.
I'm totally with you. I get it.
Have to be clear, consistent,
Yeah,
quiet.
100%, Bill. Yes. Hey, Jennifer. You have to come up. I'm so sorry. Get Tony Pappas out of the way.
I'm Jennifer Phillips. I'm not for or against tents, but what was the application process for the tent that has gone up? I haven't even seen it at the fire barn. Was there a process?
Tom,
for
did they
that?
need Tom Reesum? Can you hear me? I don't have my glasses on, so I can't tell whether people are looking at me.
I mean, just thinking if we're going to be fair along
Yeah,
across all
totally.
boards.
Did,
This was a conversation
Yeah.
when the fire department brought the tent to us.
yeah,
We had a conversation about this and are they moving forward with that or?
yeah, it's being built right now. And that's why I was asking
That
Tom.
was part of why this is on the agenda, because
So there was no approval sought or asked.
We don't have any
we
tent
don't
ordinance.
have an ordinance for tents, and tent fatigue is real because
I
it's-
thought the ordinance was no tents. That's what I've always told.
No
people, tents are
camping.
Not allowed.
No, you can't camp, but it doesn't apply to these like, I mean, to me, I can remember going to kids, soccer or lacrosse games and and you'd bring that kind of tent and you'd stay out of the sun or whatever. That's what these look like to me. And we don't really cover them. Thank you, Jennifer. Anybody else before we move this to planning? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Let's see. Community Center, Mary Ann.
So remind the council that some time ago, I applied for the town applied for and received a community center grant for the state of Rhode Island with the understanding and hope to purchase the community center. We spent some time negotiating, and to provide the historical perspective, is back in, I think it was 2019, when the community center approached the town of New Sharon to possibly sell that building. The council had a subcommittee made up of myself, Sven was on it, Kim Einloff and Charlene, and also the Rock Island Bed had a committee also, which was led by Tony Patterson. He's here this evening.
I think you might need to move the speaker closer.
There we go. How's that? Yeah. So we went through some negotiation, and the bed was preferring not to sell the property to the town. I've since asked them to put that in writing, because what we need to do is we did have a grant from the state of.
How much was the grant?
The grant was $320,000, with the opportunity to receive more funding up to about $490,000. And that's based on these community center grants where from another communities have applied for them, and some others haven't been able to proceed with their program. So they were going to reallocate the money. So we would in line to receive the additional funding. How much? We don't know at this point, and it would be up to about $490,000. Not that it's saying it would be $490,000. So finally, BED did have a vote back on June 15th, in May of June 15th. And they did a formal vote, a motion to withdraw the offer. And that was voted on by the BED committee. So what I'm looking for the council is the authorization to let the state know and refund them the grant that we did apply.
Bill.
Was that withdrawn because it couldn't come to common ground on price, or they elected not to go forward? I'm just curious.
It was more that they elected not to move forward.
So it wasn't because it couldn't come to an agreement on price.
We didn't even get that far as dollars and cents. Unless Tony wants to add anything, is that pretty much it, Tony?
That's covers it.
Okay.
Need a motion for that?
I would appreciate that since I will be returning the grants.
I'll make a motion for the town manager to return the grant from the state for the potential purchase of the community center plot 6, lot 90-9.
Thank you, Neil. This pains me to vote for this because it just makes so much sense on its face. It just, it's just too bad. It was an opportunity. I understand people are serving bed and I get it. It's just a shame of a missed opportunity to me. Any other comments before we vote?
So I'm just want to ask, so Tony, you're on the bed board
Yes.
and there's no resuscitation of this? Like the board just doesn't want to move forward?
That is correct. I don't know, be resuscitated in the future if circumstances change, but currently there's no interest in pursuing the sale.
Okay.
Okay.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Yeah. Tom, you want to come up and talk to us about these two? By the way, if you haven't, I know you do, Allison, you go up there all the time. If you haven't been up, the Thomas project seems to be really moving along.
Yeah, a lot of people see the house closed in and say, oh, it's almost done.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. I'm guilty of that. Should be a couple weeks, right?
But they are in real good shape. The last two items that were rebid was the plumbing and the electrical. The plumbing, we got down from the previous number to just 75, as you see in front of you. And the second electrician came forward that's no longer working at the at Finn's or whatever it's called now. So she became available, and Tammy Tyler bid a lower number of 62,420. So that's as, you know, we've bid it out 3 times now, and we're lucky to get anyone to bid it, but that's as good as we're gonna get.
Gotcha.
And we're on, I mean, budget for the project. I mean, how does it
Sure.
roll up?
I'm keeping Amy to my back, but
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
we don't have a lot of room.
Are these numbers higher than what we had anticipated?
Everything is. I mean, the price per square foot for quality housing right now is sneaking up at $1,000 a foot. And 5 years ago, it was 500 to 600. It's crazy.
It is.
And everybody's feeling it as we are. Yeah.
Bill?
Yeah, so are these numbers on the line with what we got budgeted?
Sure. Yeah, it's maxing us out, so we're gonna have to find other ways to do things like final grading and all that stuff. We will.
So the project, these numbers came in higher, but it's sort of a matter of readjusted. There'll be enough to complete it, what has been approved for.
Yes.
And then, on the plumbing, does that also include, does that number include hook up to the street?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to award these 2 bids? Tyler Electric Service for $62,420, Oceanside Plumbing for $75,000 on the Thomas property construction. Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Review sea level rise resiliency RFP. I was, this is before us because we had talked about the council wanting to see it before it went out. I mostly wanted it on the agenda because this is going to be probably the first or second of many. You know, in all likelihood, it's going to be pretty common to have to be planning and spending money on these types of projects. Fortunately, we have Senator Whitehouse, Senator Reed, Representative Magaziner, who are very much keyed in to the challenges that the island faces in terms of resources. So they've been very open and supportive and helpful with the congressional appropriations process and with helping us with grants. So that's cause for some optimism. So I just wanted to say that because I sort of feel like I want to put this on regularly, so it's not a surprise that we're gonna have to be doing this stuff. And I think this is a really good description of you know, kind of the initial planning that we have to do. But go ahead, Mary Ann.
So, yes, the council did ask to take a look at this before we went out to bid. I think there's a lot of interest in this project going forward. As a reminder, we did receive a grant from Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank for the amount of $465, and then we had the NIFWIC grant to also complement that. The RFQ was put together and worked on by a few individuals. Allison Ring was one of them, also our town engineer, Jim Jeremiah. Also, an engineering company called Peer Engineering. I'm familiar with them. I worked with them in other lives. They work with the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, and they were the technical review for the grant, and they assisted us with that. So they participated. Also, we were fortunate enough to reach out to the state of Rhode Island. Now has a chief resiliency officer that works through Rhode Island DEM. We've asked her to also review the RFQ, and she did. So what this is, the basic, this RFQ, the bulk of the work is going to be planning. It will be modeling, data, plan design, and permitting. There's no construction at this point. It is strictly permitting, designing and planning, and it also has a big component of stakeholder participation. It's going to be a huge part of this whole planning process. They'll come up with a couple of, they'll come up with designs, and with those designs, it'll come back for a planning process. This whole process, even Jim and I were speaking about this today, it'll take us about 12 to 18 months to get through this whole process. And during that time, we'll probably be looking at other grant opportunities that will start complementing our next steps, which will be the construction phase. And speaking with Jim also today, what we think we'll do is we'll wait until after the 4th of July weekend to advertise this. We'll advertise it the week of July 8th, I think is the Monday, with bids, proposals due back on August 2nd, and hopefully in what I call the big meeting in August, which is like around 17th, 18th, 19th, whatever date that'll be. Hopefully we'll be able to come back and make an award at this time. I know Allison has been chatting and in keeping the folks on the Sea Level Rise Committee involved with where we are as status with this. So at this point, I think we're ready to move forward with it.
I think it's important just to point out for people who are here, but also people who are listening and may refer back. We talk about Cornneck Road. Cornneck Road is a very long road. What we're really talking about in this grant is from the Scotch Beach entrance, sort of down through Town Beach, essentially. There's a lot of, and down to the openings through the dunes, sort of toward Bridgegate Square. You know, we've all seen the parking lot. We've all, you know, that's what this will be focusing on. Is that right, Marianne? As I understand it, just so people know what the definition of Cornneck Road is. So do you feel like you need a motion on this, or is this an update?
I think this will be an exciting
Great.
project.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate all the work. Allison's not here, but please tell her how
He
much
had
we
some
appreciate
conflict with
that.
a 5-year-old. being-
Yeah, well, that'll happen. All right, number 11, Director of Human Services.
So I'm pleased to look for the council to act to give advice and consent to hire Allison Carley as our new Human Service Director. We had 5 applicants. 1 did withdraw. The interviewing committee consists of myself, Marguerite Donnelly, Sandra Kelly, Joanne Warfel, and Vivian Donis. And I think based on Allison's expertise and experience, I think she'll be a great addition to the team here on Block Island. She's looking to start July 15th. So Allison is here and we welcome her to.
Come on up, Allison. Just to further the torture.
Please. I love to be tortured. My favorite.
First of all, thank you for applying. Does anybody on the council have any questions for Allison? Do you have any questions? No? Yeah, right, exactly. So
Don't do it to me.
Here's I'll sort of all of our kidding aside. I feel like one of the things that Kim Einloth, our first Human Services Director, really brought to the table were these mainland relationships that have really borne fruit. And I think are actually really helping a number of people around the island. So I would just ask, and you know, my sense is that Kim is readily available. If I were on one of the things that I do on my first day is go over to the mainland and have a cup of coffee with Kim, because you know, I think that you know, my sense is that she still wants to be helpful. And I know you have tons of skills. Those are relationships. And my sense is that you are probably willing to help us pass those on. I think it's great. Anything else? Can I have a motion to provide the council's consent for the appointment of Allison Carley as the town of New Shorehams' new Director of Human Services? Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no? Aye.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I mean, I enjoyed all that public comment, but I think I'm starving.
Yeah, right. All right, fair enough.
Thank you so much.
Will you bring us an ice cream?
And I heard
A
everything.
real human services director would have brought ice cream.
I gotta be in front of the public.
Yes, Jennifer.
Congratulations. Have you on board. I'm on the senior advisory, and now that that position is full, we would like to really stress that we would like a director for the senior advisory.
I saw that went out this week, right?
We've advertised and we've re-advertised. We did have a potential candidate and we did interview that potential candidate. However, that potential candidate had already committed to a part-time job from 7:45 to 12:50. So that's not, we all realized that wasn't going.
But if we can continue advertising and we love.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Very important. Yeah.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Charlene started posting flyers, I think, in the market and things like that. She
Great.
showed me a green flyer that she was now posting.
I bumped into someone today who I asked to take a look at it.
Great.
Do you want to, like, because people are listening to this meeting, do you want to say more about, or could you say more about what the job is so that anybody who's listening could share that information?
So
It is an important job.
yeah, it is. The senior coordinator works mainly on senior related activities. And what is a misconception where a lot of people on this island don't realize is seniors is considered age 55 and older. And one of the programs that Kim jump-started was the Meals on Wheels program, which is mainly for seniors. And now the senior coordinator will pick that up and run with that. They do a lot of also coordinating with the Recreation Department in the recent few months, working on programs that the Recreation Department can now look to and coordinate with seniors. They're doing things, off-island trips and things of that nature. So this position focuses just strictly on the seniors and activities related to the seniors. They usually participate in the lunch brunch programs and things of that nature.
Terrific. All right, Amy. You're up. It's good to see you, Amy. Fantastic.
Okay. So I think we're going to start with financials through May.
Yes.
And we can turn page by page if anyone has questions, but just at a high level, we're obviously coming down to the end and working very hard, struggling a bit to fit everything into the budget for year end. Revenues are on track. I would say they're just fine. We have a couple of really highlighted areas and everything else is stable, which is great. Stable is great. On the revenue side, on the expense side, Tom alluded to just the escalation in prices, and you're seeing that in any of the trades. You're seeing that in anything with fabrication. And so that's been a struggle. We're getting projects done, but a lot of them, almost all of them, are more expensive than we anticipated when we put this budget together. So that's been hard, but we're making it work. You know, the problem areas are the ones that we've talked about throughout the year. Legal is still really high. But there's nothing new to share, I would say. We're just struggling against those price counts and those
Right.
budget line items.
So none of the revenue items are keeping you up. It's managing. It's
Yep,
managing.
we knew we were gonna be a little short on taxes because we had one large abatement. Building revenues are extraordinary.
Yeah.
They're offsetting a little bit of a slowdown in clerk's fees, which aren't
problematic. It's just a slow down, which is fine. Hotel and meals, meals is consistent with 22, which is great. 23 was an off year, so we don't use it as a basis. Hotel tax is consistent with last year. And the cottage and rental tax is actually tracking even higher. So all those things, which are our big ones, look good. Harbors started off the season really well with some great weekends. So we're looking forward to that revenue.
Reading the agenda broadly, because I forgot to put this on the agenda. Oh, sorry. Ian, if someone checks, God bless them. Possibility of putting the pumper truck, not the pumper truck, the mobile pump that we talked about at the financial town meeting, doing that as part of the as a referendum on election day. Can you and Millie help us with the calendar and timing on that? Because I don't want to miss. I know that, Millie, there's August 7th is our deadline for getting any questions that have to be on the ballot to the state. So we will have to construct and approve the ballot question at some point, presumably during July, right?
Right, right. So you would want to have that in front of you kind of as soon as possible, because you do want to give some time for legal to, to review it and finalize the language. Although you have the July 17th meeting. You do have a July 1st meeting scheduled. At this point, we don't have anything on it. I know, Keith, you're not going to be here for it. We'll talk later whether that's going to go on. But
can work that out with Martha.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like there will be a July 1st meeting. Yes. I know we've already talked to you about this, Ms. Paul, and there was radio silence. So
I know, I was going to mention that too, because that's the night of the fireworks.
Right.
So,
well,
I mean, I'll come here and watch them from town hall if you make.
Anyway, we'll have certainly the July 17th, and then our first meeting in August to meet that deadline. And we can, I think we have plenty of time to finalize this.
One other slightly adjacent update would be on the homestead exemptions.
Yes.
So we've had just about 100 applications so far. I would remind anyone who did not submit that the deadline is the 28th, and that all the materials are either in the finance office or on the town's website.
I would mention on that, just as an aside, the staff in the finance department and the clerk's office have worked so well together on that. It really has been wonderful, because there is a bit of got to go get it notarized, a lot of, not a lot of back and forth, but you do have, and it's done so smoothly and good naturedly. It's really a great experience.
We do appreciate the staff who took this on in short order.
Yeah.
And have been processing them.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a question. How are we notifying people? Are we notifying people, or are we just expecting that
We are expecting them to pay attention, hear from their neighbors, hear
Right.
from their friends,
Okay.
be engaged in the community, maybe read the newspaper. But we're not doing a direct, we've put it on the bulletin board. I can send out a reminder.
Is it on the town website?
Is it on the town's social media? Is it on the town's website?
It has been on social media, but it has been on the website.
It has been on social media as well.
Is
Oh, we
it-
have? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, it is on the voters or the homeowners to inform themselves. I understand that, but I just feel like it's an important thing that we want people to know.
Yeah. Bill?
I was just gonna ask, on a referendum, how does that work? So if a referendum is passed, how long does it take to effect for the numbers and so forth? So if a referendum is passed, when would you actually say water pump, would it be, or, I think it comes from the X. How does that work?
Millie's gonna disagree if she wants, but I'm pretty sure as soon as that election is certified, it would be valid. And that's when you could be authorized to enter into a contract.
So if you enter in a contract, but then in the next tax season is where the tax, is where the money would come from? Or is it?
And would
Yes,
depend when
if
you
it were
issued
a-
the bonds.
If it were a borrowing, then it's whenever the debt service of the bonds flow through, which presumably would be the next fiscal year in this case. If it came, the only other option would be to have it come from reserves, which probably is not going to be the case in this instance, but we may put that language in there, and that again would flow through whenever the expense hit the town's books.
So bottom line, is, once the referendum was passed, that would be the green light to go ahead and start the process goes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Any questions from the council about the financial report or any of this other stuff directly related to the financial reports? All right, Amy, you're on the next one too.
Okay.
Got to make a lot of motions here.
We're going to make a lot of motions, and it's not housekeeping, but we focus these for the last meeting of the fiscal year. So we are doing some bookkeeping here. The first is to authorize over expenditures of certain appropriations, identifying offsetting departments that have excess revenue. And this is based on the fact that throughout the financial town meeting process, we authorize expenditures at the department level. So 3 departments and sort of the context where they're going over. Dispatch will be over about $44,000, a combination of wages and benefits, some additional staff at different rates, and some different benefit packages than were originally budgeted, as well as some building maintenance. I'm still looking for some other places to take that 9,000 from, but just in case. The next one, boards and commissions, is going to be over about $28,000. This is in the planner line exclusively. And when we turn to the back of the page, you'll see that the GIS line, both of those are Allison, the GIS line is underexpended. So her work across the 2 roles has been more focused on the planner, and they're in different departments. So they're offsetting. And then the last is the expenses related to the installation of Mansion Beach bathrooms, which falls under capital. So these were excess expenses in deploying that program. I do believe that there is going to be funds available in the infrastructure fund for other projects that are underexpended. Once that has all resolved itself, I'll bring that forward to the
That's what I was going to ask, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll bring that forward to the council once it's clear that there is funding there to offset.
Great.
So on the back of the page, you have some areas where we've identified savings that help cover those expenses. The first is in the building department. We're estimating that we'll be about $15,000 under on the consultant building official line. The GIS technology we've mentioned, so that'll offset the additional planner costs with another $5,000 that can help offset those other over expenditures. And then library wages and benefits, they're going to be under budget about $50,000. And this is a result of vacancies that they didn't have filled throughout the year. But I believe they are fully staffed now or on their way.
No, they're on the way.
On their way.
Yeah. They have 1 advertisement out, still up.
Questions on those?
No, I don't. It's really well explained. Thank you.
So I'll just need
The memos, great. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Dispatch, is a good portion of that, what's the percentage of that? That's probably.
Yes,
Sure.
that's exactly right.
So that 44,000 breaks down into 9,000 building maintenance. We'll drop that off our conversation for now. Benefits is 20,000, so that's essentially a family plan. And then the wages are 15,000.
Great. How would you like to structure this motion?
If you could make a motion to authorize over expenditures of certain appropriations, not exceeding the 2024 budget as presented.
Very well.
So moved.
Yeah. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Great.
Now we're going to move on to assignments and encumbrances. So This is something I'm going to do better at working with presenting to you guys next year, next fiscal year, when we do monthly reports, because sometimes you hear me talk about this expense looks like it's over budget because we actually have funds reserved from a prior year.
Right.
And so that's the exercise that we're doing now. And it falls into three categories. We're going to take things that are budgeted in fiscal year 24, projects that need to be done that we haven't done, and hold on to those funds to continue to do those projects in the future. That's the first group, assigning 24 funds for use in 25. The second group is holding on to some of those assignments that we've previously made where those projects are not yet completed. And then the third group is things that we had held on to by vote of the council, but it's time to release them because either the projects are completed and there's excess funds, or it's clear that we're not going to do those projects in the way that was originally described.
Where does that get released to?
So it will all get released down to sort of fund balance of the town. That unreserved fund balance level that we talk about at audit time.
So does that allow something, does that allow help budget out a year that's over, or is it just, where does that kind of thing?
Yeah.
It's not meant to be a budgeting solution. So it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't solve the issues I described about trying to keep within our budget for the current year. In that most of these are capital items, so they are very clearly identified uses of funds. What it does is ensures that if we have a project that really needs to happen and we're not getting it done in those 12 months that it's budgeted for, we don't have to start again at the beginning. So if we look at the 2024 assignments, the first is related to the Harbor's truck for $60,000, which has not been purchased yet. It's still needed, but it just didn't get done this year. And so the request is, assuming we have enough left in the 24 budget when all the books are closed, can we hold that $60,000 to get that done? It can't be used for something else. That's exactly what it's for. If it doesn't get used for that, it will sit there and next year we will release it. Is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For anyone who's not looking at the memo, the next item is $40,000, again, related to Harbor's equipment. The third is the balance remaining related to Coast Guard station work, which is $77,821. And that's a combination of the dock project and motor pool work. So both of those are combined in that 77,000. And then the final one is the police radio system. We had budgeted $60,000 in 24. We know that project is going to happen. It adds to funds that we are holding from 23 to get it done, but it's been a long process on that project.
And just to flip back just a tiny bit, the dock work that you're talking about, that's at the Coast Guard station?
Yep.
That now isn't going to happen until July?
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
or later. Hopefully in July.
It's
Okay.
not going to be done by June 30th, which means if we don't go through this action,
Right.
we won't have money to
Got
pay
it.
for it.
Right.
Got it. That's okay. I just wanted to clarify that was the dock we were talking about.
Bill?
So we used to do saving funds, you could put it in and carry on, so this essentially, as long as the project has breath in it that it's gonna be done, is there a limit how many years we can do it, or as long as it's a reality that it's gonna happen?
There's not a hard line. And so if we skip to, well, let's go in order. If we move down to the next section of prior years assignments that I'd like the council to authorize us to renew for another year. These are $46,000 related to generator work. And it's a series of multiple generator budgeting that is the oldest on the books. Some of these go back to 2017-18. We know that our generator needs are still shifting around the town and those funds can complete those projects. But that's the oldest that we're holding on to is that $46,000. I would encourage us to hold on to that and finish those because there's some visibility now in the deployment of the medical center generator that's gone to the transfer station. So the next one is technology equipment, just under 95,000. A lot of this is particularly dedicated for police technology, which is a program that we've been talking about over the last few years. Transfer station upgrades, 44,000. That was originally around the contract compactor and the scale. That's one that will probably go away next year, but I want to be entirely sure that we're done with everything we need to do there. Landfill slope, currently 66,000. So every year that we can, we try to budget $70,000 or so in the operating budget, because we know that slope will continue to need maintenance when the time comes. Coast Guard dock and motor pool, 99,621. This is the fiscal year 23 amount. Again, because both of those projects, the dock and the motor pool, are still ongoing. And then the last is the 2023 appropriation of $40,000 for the body worn cameras. Again, we know that program is finally underway. It's actually going to take us a few years to incur all the expenses related to it because we have so much grant money, which is great, but we want to be able to match that and pay for it over time and not commit any additional funds besides what we've already committed to. Questions on those?
No. Thank you.
So then two on the back of the page that I would ask you to release, $34,000 related to Heinz Field. This was originally around drainage in the parking lot. I think the consensus at this point is that we've reached the limit of what is going to be done right now. Not that we're done forever, but with this money and what the intent was, it's time to let that go. And then the other item is related.
Is that because there is no plan, or? I mean. I mean, I'm all for letting it go if that's the right thing. I just want to better understand. Someone had a plan at some point and then it died, or.
No, in actuality, Jeremy had a plan to, at the parking, all the water was running into the parking lot swamp. And we had a plan to put in 3 manholes and culverts running it to the low spot to the east. We found that we were able to do that with just 2 culverts. So we were able to save some money.
Oh, okay.
So I think we accomplished what we needed with
A lot less than what we anticipated. And then the New Harbor Vision Study, we had 2 different budget years allocations, and then really went with a different scope of that project. So there's excess funds that I think can be released now.
Any questions? Do we need to make 3 motions here or 1?
No, 1 motion.
Okay, I would make a motion to assign 2024 funds for use in 2025 in accordance with the finance director's memo to the town council. I would also include in that motion the renewal of prior years unexpended assignments consistent with the town with the finance director's memo. And I would include the release of prior year's unexpended assignments spelled correctly in a manner consistent with the finance director's memo to the town council. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it.
All right, next we have an annual authorization by the council to transfer landing fees from the landing fee fund to the general fund to support fiscal year 24 operations. This is all based on the requirements of the landing fee statute. And those funds are collected into a dedicated fund, and in order to offset the costs associated with the authorized uses, the council needs to actually authorize the transfer of the dollars. So for calendar year 22, which equates to fiscal year 24, $192,495.93.
Go ahead.
I think it's important people understand, correct or wrong, that this doesn't mean these departments get this extra money.
No.
It's just how Amy pays it out, so. But I think if you read it, you might not understand that, not the council, but the public in general, which is.
Right.
Reimburse expenditure.
And we are bound by the statute to only expend these funds for the categories included in the statute. So it offsets expenditures we're gonna have to make, and terrific. I would make a motion.
So just
Oh, sorry.
one last
No,
question.
please.
So, but the landing fees that we collect are still best guess as to, we're going on whoever gives us them. We don't actually, isn't there a little unclear on what we're actually getting?
I think we are clear on what we're getting. We are getting different things from different entities.
Okay.
So the PUC regulated interstate navigation remits a specific amount according to Rhode Island general law annually. And they provide a passenger count, and that's all under that legislation. Some of the other transportation entities, like the New London Ferry and the Montauk Ferry, are not subject to that law. And therefore they voluntarily make a contribution to align themselves closely to the landing fee legislation.
Okay.
I'm not sure that, is that close enough?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So it's a mix.
I would make a motion to approve the transfer of landing fees to the general fund to reimburse expenditures promoting the health, safety, and welfare of all passengers in accordance with the memo provided to the town council by the finance director.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it.
Okay, next on our list is to write off taxes that are uncollectible. And so we do this for taxes that are older than 10 years old. And they're primarily motor vehicle and tangible taxes. In this case, we're looking at tax year 2014. And I forgot to look up what the levy was in 2014. I'm going to guess it was between 8 and 9 million. And we're writing off $932.42 as uncollectible.
Pretty good.
Yes, it's fantastic. I would make a motion to approve the write-off of these uncollectible taxes from 2014. Consistent with the memo provided to us by the finance director. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Okay.
Consistent with the authorizations made at financial town meeting about opening and closing checking accounts or banking accounts, I would first ask the council to authorize the closure of the checking account associated with the Block Island Prevention Task Force, which has not had any activity since 2019.
Great. Is there any money in it?
We will end up, the general fund will end up writing off about $200
Okay.
of interfund. So we transfer the couple $100
Yeah.
that was left to pay that receivable, and we'll write off about $200 outstanding.
Great. Terrific. Thank you.
What happened to that group?
We were doing so well.
I'm going to focus on a more positive statement, Martha, which is if those funds ever became available, I think we could accommodate those functions in the same way under the Human Services Department.
I never understood that.
So that's a more forward-looking
That was
approach.
I would make a motion to authorize the closing of the checking account, last four digits 0143 at the Washington Trust Company for the Block Island Prevention Task Force /BICEP. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
The next is the authorization to open two checking accounts. Both of these are also at Washington Trust. The first is for the New Shore Sewer Commission. They went out to bid for banking services, and Washington Trust was the only respondent. The commission did award the contract for banking services, but the council needs to authorize the opening of the account. So I would ask that you do that. And then it is time to have a school construction dedicated checking account just to keep everything cleaner. So I would ask you to authorize that as well.
I would, and are there any questions for Amy? I would make, oh, sorry, go
One
ahead.
question, the school construction project, checking account, is that something that's managed through your office or through the school's financial office?
It's managed through our office because that's where the bond funds will sit.
Okay.
And so we work collaboratively on the flow of paperwork and authorizations for invoices and payment. But at the end of the day, we control those funds here.
Sure. Okay.
How are we paying for services that we're currently getting
We have been floating those under our working capital.
under our working capital?
Which is why I mentioned I have some things coming up, and that will be some short-term bans to prepare for that project.
Right.
And there are a couple other projects that the town's been doing that on where we want to get those bonds issued.
Right.
So
Gotcha. I would make a motion to approve the opening of checking accounts at Washington Trust Company for the New Shoreham Sewer Commission and the Block Island School construction. Any discussion? Not all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. One more?
last one. So this is requesting the council's authorization to execute an agreement between the Broadband Fund and Information Systems Technologies, who most of you will know better as Michelle Spiro. She has been working through Mission Broadband for most of the last 2.5 years, I would say. The town's relationship with Mission has ended, but we still need to maintain some of those functions that Michelle is currently in control of. And we're working on a transition. This is contemplating a 6-month engagement with a potential for a 6-month renewal as Michelle winds down her involvement in the project as well.
Great. Any questions about this? Can I ask just one question, not sort of related to this? I think it would be helpful at some point when your time and energy permit to sort of go through the numbers on the broadband project. I was thinking this at the FTM when we were approving the debt, but or the debt service, but just where'd the money go, who'd the money go to, how that all work, I think would be really helpful.
Sure.
Any questions about this though? I would make a motion to approve the agreement for broadband consulting services between the town of New Shoreham Broadband Fund and IST Incorporated. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Thank you, Amy. Really appreciate it. Mary Ann?
So I want to go over a few things that's in my town manager's report. And one of the things I've asked is Chief Dean to join us this evening so he can update the council as to plans for the July 4th. We don't have another council meeting until after that. I asked him to join us so he can update the council as to the plans for the July
Great.
4th.
Thank you.
I'd like to start off my report, which isn't written in my report because we did not find out until this morning. And I forwarded all to the council that Kate and the U.S. Harbors has voted a Block Island Harbor #1. And that was great news to hear, as Kate said in her email to me. I woke up to hear great news this morning. So congratulations to her and her
Terrific.
team
Just
for
great.
the work they've done. And it's such wonderful news.
Really wonderful.
So congratulations to Kate and her team for all the good work they do over the years. Couple other things in my report that I want to point out to the council. You already heard that the Thomas Properties is finally moving along. I remember the first day I came on board and asked about the Thomas property, and I found out that we had to update the ordinance. The facilities director said to me, I'm busy with the broadband project, and here we are 4 years later, we finally got the Thomas house up and running. We still got some more work to do, but just to see them, and it was fascinating to watch them do all the movement and stuff of that nature. It really was to sit there and I had a bird's eye view.
Yeah, right.
And a couple of times I had to turn the other way because I just, I just could not watch anymore. Also, Eco Depot, we do have a date on that finally, and that's Wednesday, October 9th. We don't have specific times. Once we get closer and they work out some logistics from their end, we'll find out specifics about that and the location. Also, Mansion Beach bathroom, Amy just mentioned that we overspent it by 75,000. However, the good news is it's up and running, operating. It went online this week, and Mike Shea, DPW director, was down there a couple of times, and people are really happy to see it, and it's getting a lot of use. As you well know, that we did close off the bottom of the bluffs, the stairs, working with DEM on that, and also a path has been provided for first responders if they need to make a rescue.
So there is a
which
path
was,
now.
Nice to get that
Yeah.
done. Also, I want to point out to the council, because we had some discussion about this, and we need to keep this discussion going so folks know where we're going with this, is the school committee last night met and authorized awarding the bid of a reduced scope of $2.6 million on the school project. They'll be doing the envelope of the gymnasium and the vermiculite abatement. If you remember, we did just meet with the school committee, and now we're talking more of a big picture, community forum as to where we see education, 21st education in the community, which I think is a great step and a great move. But I think we need to keep reminding folks that that's what we're doing as we continue with that conversation.
What's
That's
the rough number on that?
2.6 million.
2.6.
That's all I have in my town manager report. I will now turn it over to Paul to talk about 4th of July and where we are.
I think Bill had a question. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, there was some work done on Cornet Road and over on Spring Street. It was done quickly. It was a big job, and you know, the town had some involvement in it. And it just based on that, I think it was a
Yeah.
credit.
Yeah, what happened, if the council remembers, I forwarded you some letters that I had sent to the director of RIDOT. Like everywhere else, the winter storms really did a job on Spring Street and Corn Neck Road. We did receive notification. I update the council, I think, in our meeting, last council meeting, that they would be coming out here, and they did. They did say they'd be out of here by last week, and they were. They did the work on Spring Street, and they also did some work also on the dunes on Corn Neck Road. They will be coming back in the spring where they'll be doing some, in the fall, where they'll be doing some additional bridge work at that time. And I think the Spring Street may have a little more work, but I'm not 100% sure. For some reason, this group with RIDA has been to communicate with us and Mike Shea on this project. I think they're more interested in getting it.
Yeah. Great. Paul? Thank you. Hey, Paul, before you start, can you just, for people who might be watching, maybe talk about the, shall I say, facts of the stuff of the event that happened in the Narragansett?
That is still an open investigation by Narragansett PD, so I can't say everything that I know.
Yeah.
What I will say is that one of the groups involved, and there's a lot of rumor and speculation that has gone on in the past.
That's why
week
I'm asking.
that is not true.
Right.
That incident was started by a different group using racial slurs and racial comments. Some of the comments that I've heard from people here about what that particular group of people did when they were here, where they went, et cetera, kind of a little appalling, to be honest with you. And I think that we, as a group and leaders in our community, may want to take a little more opportunity when something like this happens and these rumors and these speculations begin to happen, to put the brakes on it until all the facts are actually known about what really happened.
Yeah.
That particular group of people that everyone keeps talking about came here in the afternoon, they went to wherever they went to. We had no issues at all on Block Island. But everyone wants to spin this.
Yeah.
Into something that it's not.
Mhm.
And I think that we, as our leaders, need to learn to start trying to put the brakes on some of these things as they start to spin and say, hey, let's get all the facts. Let's not speculate.
Do rumors start on Block Island? Have you heard that?
Well, I'll tell, well, and you know, you kind of joke about that, Keith,
No,
but here's the thing.
Yeah.
On Block Island, if it's just a rumor and 3 people repeat it, it's now the truth.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's so true.
And it's something that honestly, in, you know, how this all came about in the past week. And like I said, I've seen some things on Facebook that people have shown me. I've heard other people talking about this and
Yeah.
some of it, I've gotten emails about it.
Yeah,
We're a better community.
yeah.
We really are.
Well put. Thank you.
So,
Excuse me, Court. The one thing that happened that I noticed, because I was unusual for me watching Channel 10 News for a few days, reveling in the fact we weren't going to be hot while the mainland was. And it seemed as if every opportunity they had, and it may have been on 12, I just don't, 10 is the only station I get. They talked about this thing in Galilee. And they were down at Galilee, as I'm sure everyone knows. They made a point of going down that night. But of course, by the time they got there, it was dark and nothing was going on. And they played it over and over, and it was the lead, and it was the lead in the morning, and it was the lead at noon. And I don't know any way of dealing with, you know, the news stations who just want to come to Block On because it's summertime. But that's, you know, another horrible thing that you have to deal with. And I think, well, if we've ever, any of us have seen the news, we know there's as big a problem with social media these days.
well, one of the, you know, I spoke to a reporter during this week, and one of the things that we had talked about is bad things sell news, and that's their job. And I pointed this out very pointedly to him. Said, you are taking 2 incidents that were 2 years apart, and you're trying to create this image of what we are and what certain people are. And it's wrong.
Yeah.
We have, how many 100,000 people come here every summer, Bill? Right? And we have a dozen arrests. Gillette Stadium holds 63,000 people for a Pats game. They make over a dozen arrests every single Pats game. So when people are asking these questions, is Block Island safe? Is it safe to ride the ferry? Is it safe to come here? Of course it is. All you have to do is look at the numbers and just, and this is why I don't watch the news. Because that's all they want to do is spin junk to sell more news. So anyways. enough of
Paul,
that.
thank you for doing that. Appreciate it.
Summer's here. Some of us with short hair are getting tans. Our CSOs are all here. They're out and about in town. And we're, kind of ramping up our summer. For the 4th of July week, we have several extra troopers coming the day before, and the 2 that are here typically during the weekend. We do also have 5 additional troopers for 4th of July day, so we have a total of 7 of them. And all of my guys, it's all hands on deck for everybody.
Right.
Basically 4 days.
Yeah.
We've talked, Bill and I talk pretty frequently, and they had boats that sold out on Wednesday. Got a heads up on Tuesday. It's going to be a busy day. Take some proper staffing.
Right.
So there's always been, and I expect that to continue. Always been great communication with them, and everything that we've ever asked of them in terms of help, they've helped with. So, so I think overall we're in actually really good shape for 4th of July.
Don't say that.
Hoping we have this weather continues to go as planned.
Yeah.
Most of us were tired of the 8 months of rain and wind
Yes.
and cold. So this has been it's
Yeah.
actually been pretty nice. And
Yeah.
town's been busy. There's people around, but
Juneteenth is
Everyone's
kind of a
behaving.
new phenomenon, really, when you think about it. I mean, someone was sort of complaining about Juneteenth, but it hasn't been a state, you know, like, what is it that we're expecting? You know, next year you'll know that that's a peak day.
Well, I think a lot of it was they had, again, I don't watch the news much, but you see these things, the forecasted extremely hot weather that they are
Yes,
receiving. I talked to.
please, it's a
Lieutenant
heat dome.
Yeah, yeah. I talked to Lieutenant
Never heard
Parati
that
today,
before.
who's out in Western Mass, and he said it is unbearable out there.
Oh, yeah.
Today, so, and it, you know, that's all a part of it.
Yeah.
They have a day off, super hot.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty nice.
yeah, absolutely.
So we're fortunate.
Absolutely.
It was here.
Yes, yeah,
That was the
right.
problem.
So that's it. We're moving along with summer. Summer's coming and
I know you're working on this, Paul, and thinking about this every day, but whatever advice you can give us this fall about recruitment and staffing and all of that, please, you know, you tell us when you want to schedule sort of after you get through your first summer as chief, sort of what you've seen, where the investments need to occur, that sort of stuff. Just know that, I mean, I think to a person, we're here to hear that and be as supportive as we can be.
yeah, and I think, you know, we're working on it. I do have some applicants that looking forward into that next stage
Yeah.
for me, but I also have some other ideas in my head to try to do something a little
Great.
different outside of the box.
Yeah.
And I actually spoke to Amy a little bit about it earlier, and I think she and I, after October, we can sit down and I'm gonna have a conversation with her to see how that might look in terms of budget wise.
Yeah.
And just, you know, trying something outside the box.
Great.
Because everybody's, you know, as I said, everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah, it's not unique to us,
We
right?
need to find what the hook is.
Right.
And I think once we find the hook, we'll be good.
Great. Terrific. Thank you so much, Paul.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate the work you're doing.
You're welcome. And
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, on to item 15. I'm sorry, Mary Cerulli is resigning. That will show up on our next agenda as a vacancy, right? Is that right, Millie?
It's actually there now.
Oh, right, of course. Yes, sorry. I must admit, I did not focus on the tail end of this agenda. We have one vacancy on commission for motor vehicles for hire, 2-year alternates on sewer and water, and 2 positions on conservation. Are they going to have quorum issues?
I haven't heard. I believe that they do have enough members. They do have enough.
They do?
members, so
Okay.
I feel like they do meet.
Right, yes, that's why I was, you know, some of that stuff needs to actually happen.
They should be participating.
Good, terrific. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Because of one thing.
Of course you can.
Public comment. It's for kind of under public comment. So the town clerk's office has declaration of candidacy forms for anyone who wants to declare their candidacy for office. So that could be for town council or school committee or moderator, assistant moderator, tax assessor. What's it?
It's too late to quiz us.
Land trust.
Yes.
So, those forms are available at the clerk's office.
Great.
Bill.
I know.
Molly had asked earlier how people know about said, you know, I think people have an obligation also to come to meetings, to turn on, you know, clerk base or whatever it might be. Bob, me a little bit, I was just said something earlier, this room was packed, everyone's in here as if, you know, there's no communication from the council, so well, people should come to the meetings and they need to, you know, not just when, you know, you're up, and this isn't or against about that ordinance. but just in
No.
general.
Thank you for saying that.
So I think that's what the, or against.
Thank you. Yes. Well put. Thank you. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. We are adjourned.